Kate, it's so lovely to catch up, but I'm struggling to call you a Sydneysider. Please tell me that you also struggle to call yourself a Sydneysider.
I had this very strange moment at the airport the other day when I was in Brisbane and I was flying back to Sydney, and I got stuck at the explosive desk test. And the guy was trying to be friendly because I was clearly looking unimpressed, and said, "Oh, where are you going?" I said, "Sydney." He's like, "Oh, are you going on holiday or home?" And it took me a little second. I was like, "No, Sydney is my home." I was like, "Oh, no, I'm going home." But it kind of made me a little bit anxious for a second. But yeah, I am beginning to think of Sydney as home. But yeah, there are still some things about Brisbane that I do miss.
Well, it begs the question. Everyone says that a change is as good as a holiday. Have you found that moving to Sydney has given you a bit of a renewed vigour?
I've actually really enjoyed moving down to Sydney. I think that I love Brisbane, but if it wasn't for swimming, I probably would have moved away before now and experienced something else, whether it was Sydney or Melbourne or overseas. I would have challenged myself and gone out of my comfort zone. And so I'm finding that, you know, we've got 18 months until Tokyo, which will be my 4th Olympics, which is a long time to be doing anything in the same place. And so I'm finding that I'm gaining a sort of a new love, and it's definitely helping with motivation.
And have you found your little village yet? Because it's one thing to move, and you've obviously followed your coach Simon Cusack, so that's a constant. But in terms of finding, where do I like to get coffee? Where do I get my food? How does my little village work? How has all that been?
Yeah, I think the first couple of weeks I was just really tired because I was having to make decisions all the time, and Google Maps became my best friend. Even though it lies to you about your estimated time of arrival in Sydney, because it's always longer than it says it is, it became my best friend. And so, but I've now figured out I've got a coffee place within walking distance. I figured out my local shopping centre. They've got a great bakery, so I can get some great sourdough bread there. So once you kind of find those things, life becomes a little bit easier. And I think that we've begun to build a really good team around us as well. So it's not just, you know, finding the good cafes, it's about replacing all the people who are part of your swim team. So while I still have my coach, I needed to find a new physio and a sports scientist and a strength and conditioning and massage, and we're beginning to find all of those people as well. And so it's beginning to feel a lot more like home down here.
One thing I know you haven't quite figured out is the logistics of swimming between two different pools. Bronte seems to have figured it out. Ellie's figured it out. Kate, not so much.
Yeah, it took me a long time. We're training out of 2 different swimming pools, which is a lot to think about. But then we also train at different times at those different swimming pools. And different days, we can be at the same pool or we can be at different pools at different times. So I think it's taken me 9 weeks, but I finally last week had a week where I went to the right pool at the right time for the entire week. So I think I've got it sorted.
Okay, well, let's go back. In the aftermath of Rio, Tokyo must have seemed an eternity away, too far to comprehend. Now we're 18 months, less than 500 days. How has the mindset changed in that time, and how much are you looking forward to another Olympics now?
Yeah, it was really interesting. After Rio, I didn't want to give up, but I didn't know if I wanted to continue, and I didn't know what that space was going to look like. So I think being in a state of undecision or indecisiveness was really uncomfortable. So once I made the decision to take 2017 off and not compete for Australia that year, I allowed myself some breathing space. I said, let's see how you go. And if you fall back in love with swimming, and if it's something that you want to begin to start to dedicate the amount of time and effort and energy that is required to go to another Olympic Games, if you want to do that, then you can decide after 2017. You don't have to decide after a big shock of the 2016. And I did. I went away, and I still competed overseas. I got to go and watch a World Championships, which I haven't watched a Swimming World Championships since, I think, 2007, when they were held in Melbourne. And then I was like, no, I feel like I have more to give to this sport, and I feel like I want to be a part of this again. And so I was able to come back in with a renewed love. I was also able to allow my body to heal. I was carrying lots of injuries in the lead into 2016, and allowing my body to kind of take the time that it needed to let all that inflammation settle down, I'm in the best shape physically that I've been in probably 5 or 6 years. And that was because I did allow myself a little bit of breathing time. And so now looking onto Tokyo 2020, it's not that far away, but I also don't feel like I'm dragging my feet to get there. I feel like I want to run and reach 2020, whereas I think in 2016 it had been a long lead up and I was like, come on, we just need to get to this Olympics, we need to get it over with. I'm really excited for Tokyo.
You've certainly learned how to do things differently. As you said, you've taken time off, you've had different preparations, you've allowed the body to heal, you've allowed the mind to heal. But that was a huge leap of faith. How do you feel that now that you're an older, more mature athlete, that you're okay taking that leap of faith and not doing things the conventional way anymore?
Yeah, I think that was the scary part, was that I'd never taken, I don't think before 2016 I'd ever had more than 3 consecutive weeks out of the water. And so to decide to take an entire year where I wasn't going to be training, where I wasn't going to be pushing myself to 100% on a daily basis, it was really, really scary because I didn't know if I was going to be able to get back to my best. And I think that what I've come to realize is that I have so many years of background work. You know, I've been doing this a long, long time. I made my first team when I was just 16 years old. And so I have so many years of background training that I can draw from. And it's been a really liberating experience because I know that if I have any injury issues or any medical issues, or if I just feel like mentally I need to take a couple of days off, that I can get back. And your body remembers and it gets back a lot quicker than I had thought. And I think I've surprised a lot of the coaches and the sports scientists and the physios with just how much good a little bit of rest can be.
Absolutely. 52.03 at Pan Pacs last year. Your fastest ever swim. Coming off, as you said, probably the least amount of prep or work that you'd done in previous years. Personal best time, Australian record, 52.03. What did it mean for you just to know that you not only can swim that fast, but you're getting better?
I think the most satisfying part of that swim at Pan Pacs was, yes, it was doing a personal best, and yes, it was an Australian record, and yes, my preparation hadn't been this picture perfect thing, but I think the thing for me that I really drew a lot of confidence on was I did that in a final, and I did that against some of the best swimmers in the world, and it really proved to me that when the chips are down, I can hold my own and I can stand up and I can perform when it counts. I swam a personal best time in a final of a race, which lots of competitive swimmers will tell you that's very, very difficult to do. It's much easier to swim it in a semi-final or in a heat when the pressure isn't on, when there isn't the thought of an outcome that's hanging over this race. And so for me to be able to do that was really, really validating.
So it was about the win, not the time.
No, it was about executing my best race in the final. And that's exactly what I did. I swam my best ever race in the final when the pressure was on.
So, only one swimmer in the world, Sarah Sjöström, has swum faster since Rio. Yes, it was a world record, but where do you see the challenges lying in world swimming for you in the 100 free?
I think the 100 freestyle for women is moving so quickly. We're just seeing more and more girls breaking that 53-second barrier, which up until a couple of years ago, only a couple of us had been under. And now we've seen Sarah break the 52-second barrier, and it just goes to show what's possible. And I think that having really tough competition globally has really pushed the event, but also within Australia, we've got great competition locally. You know, last year in the world, I was #1 in the world, and #2 in the world was Bronte, and I think Emma McKeon was 5th or 6th in the world. And that's just in Australia, and we're racing each other on a weekly basis. Bronte, I'm racing her on a daily basis, and I think that's really helped push the progression of this event. And so I'm really excited to see. I know that when I speak to Simon, my coach, he says that he's really motivated and really challenged by having a look at what other people are capable of, and it keeps him on his toes, and he's constantly thinking, what do I need to do better to make sure that, you know, these girls can keep up with the rest of the world?
Yeah. Stepping away from swimming, you've also had challenges outside the pool, a huge melanoma scare. Tell us how confronting that was, finding that your body in some ways had felt like it let you down.
Yeah, it was quite scary in that as an elite athlete, you are extremely in tune with your body. You know, as soon as you wake up, you kind of do a mental scan to see how everything's going, because you need it to be operating as close to 100% as it can possibly be. And I think skin checks is something that are always on people's priority lists because they're usually always overdue. It's like going to the dentist. But they hardly ever make it to the top of the priority list. And eventually mine did make it to the top of the priority list, and I booked myself in and I went to get it checked. And she kind of didn't like the look of the mole and was like, oh, we'll take it out now. And then we'll get it tested and see what the pathology comes back. And she rang me the next day, and it's one of those times where you have a clear memory. I remember I was going to university, I was in the middle of trying to pay for parking, and the phone rings and I pick it up and she said, I've got good news and bad news for you, Kate. I was like, okay, sure, what is it? She's like, well, the bad news is that your mole's a melanoma. And there's just like that kind of pause where life slows down and your heart rate slows down and you take a big breath. And I was like, ooh, that's not a good word. And she said, but the good news is we've caught it early. It's a stage 1. It does mean that you're going to have to come in and we're going to have to take out a wider margin around the mole. However, we're hopeful that it hasn't entered your bloodstream and that it hasn't gone to your lymph nodes. And so the next day I was in surgery getting a wider margin taken out around the mole, and they sent that off to pathology and it came back as all clear. But yeah, it was one of those moments where I didn't feel like anything was wrong. I'd been checking my moles regularly. I have quite a few of them, and to the naked eye, it didn't look like anything had changed. But to know that my career could have been in real jeopardy if I'd left it any longer. You know, the potential for losing an arm is quite high, but also you're then on a bigger cancer battle, which is very, very scary. And it suddenly put life into perspective a little bit.
And you've got a very cool scar to show for.
I have a really cool scar. It looks like I've been in a knife fight. It's really cool.
Let's drop that shirt.
Yeah, I try and see how many people I can scare with it. It's a pretty good one. But yeah, I say my youngest sister does, you know, Japanese defense. Yeah. And so I said that we just got in a fight one day and she got too close, but people don't believe me.
You've always been incredibly passionate about swimmers' rights, not afraid to tackle FINA head on. Let's talk about the World Swim League. Amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited that the ISL, the International Swim League, has got up and off the ground, and I've joined Team London, and I think it's pretty much made up almost entirely of the Brits and the Aussies, so I think that we're going to have a pretty good team. I think that it's so exciting for growing the sport globally, for encouraging and enticing a whole new set of fans. It's going to be fast, it's going to be fun, it's going to be entertaining. If you're wanting an analogy, think like the Big Bash cricket is to Test cricket. There's going to be lights, there's going to be music, we're going to be swimming fast and different events, and I think that we're going to be bringing a whole new entertainment value to swimming, which is just so exciting to be a part of.
Because it's great for you as an athlete as well to have that constant racing, to have a new environment, a new different format that keeps it exciting.
Of course, racing's fun. As swimmers, we train to race. No one trains to train. I'll put my hand up and say that I am not a big fan of training, but I know that if I want to race well, I'm going to have to train well. And what's great about it is that it helps me see a bit of a future for me in swimming. I'm able to extend my career possibly because there are some new fun opportunities. I can go overseas, I can race in America and Europe, and hopefully they can bring it down to Australia. I know that they're already in talks about that. So I can see my career extending on and beyond 2020, which isn't something that I had thought about before. And this International Swim League is making these things possible. And it's going to attract a whole heap more people to swimming, which is going to increase competition, which is going to make it more exciting and more entertaining. It's only a good thing for the sport.
Can I just double check that you said we could possibly see you swimming after Tokyo? Is that what you just said, Cate Campbell?
Yeah, you heard it here first. I'm really in a good place, physically and mentally, and there are so many great things going on in the world of swimming that I feel like I don't want to be sitting on the sidelines for them. I want to be in the thick of it, and I want to be in the midst. And so at the moment, I can see life after 2020 and continuing to swim. And I really hope that I still feel like that after the next year and a half. But the way things are going, I'm really, really enjoying it.
Final question for you, Cate. What do you want to achieve in 2019? Is there any dreams that haven't been realised yet that you can achieve in this year?
Oh, I think that my goal for 2019 is to consistently race fast and give my best performance when it counts. I make a point to not focus on medals or times because that's very outcome dependent. But I make a point to get the best out of myself when it counts. So I can stand up behind the starting blocks, and once I've dove in the water and once I've hit the wall, I can say, that was the best swim that I had on the day to give. And that comes down to how you're feeling physically on the day. It comes down to how much preparation you've done. It comes down to your mental state and if your injuries are all in check. But if I can hit the wall and I can say that is the best performance that I could have given on this day, and I did it under pressure, under the lights, in a final of a race, then I can walk away happy, whatever the result. And I'm hoping for a bit of travel as well in 2019, let's be honest. That's the serious side. There's lots of fun things that I'm really hoping to do, and being a part of the International Swim League and getting to tour around the world with some of my best friends who are also swimmers is going to be a pretty integral part of that as well.
Certainly not wearing a Blues jersey come State of Origin time.
Oh, I will most definitely be wearing a Maroons jersey. I actually packed it to bring down with me. There is no way I'm going to be wearing blue around State of Origin time. You can be sure of that.